again, Northeast Ohio. Welcome to 3 News at 5. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Betsy, a very good Wednesday afternoon to you and, of course, to everyone watching at home.
And to you, too. Jay Crawford, Betsy Kling, and so many people are keeping an eye on what is happening in Florida as Hurricane Milton makes its approach. The latest 5 o'clock advisory. This is breaking news right now. Milton is a Category 3 storm with winds sustained at 120 miles per hour, gusts to 150. The storm is moving to the northeast at about 17 miles per hour on a pretty decent pace. This would bring it onshore maybe sometime around the 8 o'clock hour. And as of right now, it looks like the National Hurricane Center is still saying it's coming into the general Sarasota, St. Pete, Tampa area. It should stay north of Fort Myers at this point, and it is expected to continue to move to the east-northeast over Orlando and off the East Coast, probably around the Kennedy Space Center area. So that is the latest on Hurricane Milton. We'll have a check with Jessica coming up in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, meanwhile, more extreme weather before Milton makes landfall. Wow. Multiple tornadoes were spotted in South Florida with several counties under a tornado watch.
Yeah.
We want to get it over to meteorologist Jessica Van Meter right now, who is tracking the very latest. Jess, good afternoon to you. A lot going on down there.
Yeah, a lot going on. A lot of impressive videos and pictures coming out of Florida this afternoon, especially some of those tornadoes. There's just been a slew of tornado reports, tornado warnings as the storm comes barreling onshore. We're going to take a further look at that 5 p.m. advisory. As Betsy mentioned, Category 3 hurricane, sustained speeds around that eye, 120 miles per hour. It is moving pretty quickly now off to the northeast at 17 miles per hour. So still that eye is offshore from Tampa and Fort Myers. The expectation with this new advisory is that it's still going to continue that northeast track and likely make landfall as a Category 3 in the next few hours here between Tampa and Fort Myers. There's still a little bit of a wobble on that track. It's still going to maintain a good amount of strength as it crosses that Florida peninsula and then moves east out into the open Atlantic. So a lot of Florida is going to be under the gun for even more impacts as we go throughout the day and even into the overnight hours. And they've already seen a lot of action so far today. We've got flood warnings, still some ongoing tornado warnings, reports of tornadoes earlier, and a lot of impressive video and photos with them out of the Fort Myers area, across central Florida, and even out across western Florida as well. We have all of the alerts, all of the warnings up, and flooding is already ongoing for many of these areas ahead of that actual landfall. Radar estimates of 5 to 6 inches with some of these areas, particularly around Tampa Bay. They've had an incredible amount of rainfall over the past few hours. That torrential rain continues to fall ahead of that eye. So heavy rain pushing in ahead of that storm, and that eye is going to be moving in with that potential for storm surge. It's still 50, 60 plus miles per hour out. So that's going to be moving in. A slight adjustment with some of the recent updates for that storm surge. That storm surge of 12 feet or higher now expected south of Tampa from around Sarasota to north of Fort Myers. So that's the area that's going to be most under the gun for the next several hours here as Milton does make landfall. So dangerous day across areas of Florida. Our forecast is looking a little better. We'll talk more about that coming up.
All right, Jess, we'll see you in just a little bit for that. Meantime, officials say the area of coastline between Tampa and Fort Myers, and that's the target zone right now, could see storm surges of up to 15 feet, as well as winds over 100 miles per hour.
Right, and if it moves farther north, that's going to go right up the gut of Tampa Bay, which is a huge part. As we mentioned, South Florida not only under the tornado watches, but flood threats as well, with all that rain that Jessica just talked about coming along with this storm. NBC's Jay Gray is near where the eye of the storm will hit. You're in Fort Myers, Florida. Jay, you're just south of where that center of the storm is expected to come on shore. We can see the winds are already starting to pick up in that area.
Yeah, Betsy J, what we're seeing is the very early outer bands of this system, and so we'll get the high winds gusting, we'll get driving rain at times, and then a bit of a lull. Obviously, as this thing gets closer to the shoreline, and it's rushing in at this point, that space in between those bands will shrink dramatically, and then by this evening into nighttime, it's just going to be constant rain, hurricane-force winds. And as it's moved a bit down south, not good news for the Fort Myers area. You're absolutely right. We're going to see a storm surge here that could be 10 to 15 feet is what the forecast is saying. That'll push water into places it's never been. And the time for preparations, the time to get ready is over. We're seeing this storm, starting to feel the effects of this storm, and it's only going to get worse as we move into the evening here. 400,000 people in evacuation zones here in Lee County, which is the Fort Myers area. Thankfully, and we've toured the Fort Myers Beach and downtown Fort Myers and some of the areas here, it looks like a lot of people listened to officials and moved to higher ground. So again, we're getting the early effects, and we'll see how this thing goes as it continues to degenerate through the evening.
All right, Jay, thank you so much. You stay safe, and coming up at 5:30 here on the news at 5, we will drill down into the data and take a closer look at the impacts in Florida. Thanks so much, Jay.